Thank you, Velma, for that warm, very warm introduction. I'm very touched. I'm sure you can hear it. So I'm very, very happy to be back home in the Rio Grande Valley. As you know, I grew up in Brownsville, so I know the valley very, very well. And like Velma said, I was in pharmaceuticals. I was in sales a long, long time. So I know what the real estate agents go through when they have to close a home. And I'm really going to be speaking about a very important subject, I think, to everyone, and that's connection. But I'm merging two disciplines. I'm merging connection and sales into one because I think it's important that they're interconnected one with the other, and I'm going to be sharing about 7 strategies with you today. Very simple on paper, but in application, it's going to require your intentionality every single day. Because according to my mentor, and I've had a lot in my life, John Maxwell, it's not just for leaders. It's for anyone who wants to improve their relationships or wants to improve their productivity in what he or she does on a daily basis. So before we begin, I want you to turn to the person next to you and say, I'm going to get better at connecting with others today. Go ahead. But do you know what that's going to require? For you guys to turn off your cell phones. No electronics. No WhatsApp, no Facebook, none of that. None of that. Before I came down, I did a little study because I wanted to prepare very much for everybody in this room because I knew I was going to have not just real estate agents, I was going to have friends in the audience, stay-at-home moms, retired individuals, although my father doesn't like to be called retired, but he is. And I wanted to make it as applicable to everyone because that's what it's about, right? The connection. So I went and I observed everyone at parks, at restaurants, church. This is really bad. When you're behind a guy that was on his phone the whole time the pastor was up there talking on Facebook. Like, really? Don't even bother going, you know? So I think we can all agree with the next statement. And that's the title of the book that I'll be referencing all day today. Everyone communicates and few connect. As is evident with this slide. I was at a park with my 3-year-old daughter. I was in tennis shoes and I was climbing because Vivian's the type of toddler that thinks it's really funny to jump off the highest part of the playground, you know? So I had to be right behind her. And as I was at the park, I saw these 2 parents on the left-hand side. They're on their phones. And their 6 and 7-year-old is climbing the outside of the slide. And it's really tall. And they're just, it's all about Facebook. And they're not even talking to each other at all. Like, there's no connection going on, right? So, and then the other picture, I'm having dinner with my husband on a date night. And we're not allowed electronics. I always put mine away, right? And I hadn't even noticed the 2 ladies sitting next to me at all. No idea they were there until I turned around, and then I had to take a picture for the talk because this is really comical. I mean, what's so important that you can't put your phone down, that you can't connect with another human being, right? So again, like I said, I'm going to be going over 7 strategies. And the reason why I titled it, Connection is the New Language of Success, is because there is a way that people like to receive information. There are 4 distinct personality types out in the world. And I have the perfect story from the book that John references. He references a time when an American businessman went up to a Japanese executive and asked him this question. What is the most important language in world trade? Can anyone tell me what you think the Japanese executive answered? Velma, do you think? Well, that's what the American businessman thought he was going to say. He said, my customer's language. That's the most important language to speak. Now, I can't expect you all to learn all the languages in the world, because that would be bad. I mean, like, we wouldn't be able to do it, right? We can barely handle 2 or 3. So all of them would be bad. One of the things that I want you to understand about connection and sales is this. It is a courtship that you're having with your customers. It's a process. It takes time. It takes intentionality. It takes practice. People buy from people they like and trust. People refer people they like and trust. But in order to like and trust you, they have to get to know you, right? You're gonna have to remove some of these layers. The best advice I got when I first started my career in 1997, I had a rep. They always did this with the younger reps. They would have an older rep come and work with them on the field. And I was really serious. I had a lot to prove because I was in the same territory as my dad, and everybody always thought, well, she was successful because she was Dr. Villalobos' daughter. I'm sure you've heard that before. And I thought, no, I'm not successful because of my dad. I mean, I've learned from my dad, but that doesn't mean that I'm successful because when I work hard and I wanted to prove myself, right? So I was really serious when I first started. So I took it real seriously. But what I didn't understand or know is that it's so critical for people to get to know you in this business. It's really important. And to do that, I had to remove some of my layers. And that was a little hard for me because I'm really serious. I'm as serious as my dad is. Very, very serious. So I've since gotten better at it, especially after the karaoke parties. I had to get out of my shell a little bit because I don't have the voice that Velma has. She had me at Celine Dion. She could do no wrong after that. So, and connection, more importantly, is going to be the ingredient to your success. But we have to put our phones down. We have to get off Facebook and FaceTime and WhatsApp and all these social media sites. We have to put them down, and we have to connect. But what if, let me ask you a question. We've talked about languages. What if communication is a barrier? How do we connect to others when communication is a barrier? If you're wondering which one I am, I'm on the far right with the blue jeans. Don't we look like Americans in France? This is in France, by the way. I studied abroad my junior year. How else can we connect to others if communication is a barrier? Can anybody tell me?
Body language.
Smile.
What else? Eye contact. A handshake. Common ground. Food, right? All these things are common. Well, let me tell you a little story about how communication was a true barrier for me. And I know the immigrants in the room, and I'm not trying to signal them out, but they're in the corner there. They'll understand this story. I had just arrived to Lyon, France. It had been maybe a month. And I was with French parents. They were an older couple. Their daughters had already moved away from home. And they invited everybody to dinner. And so here I was, a foreign exchange student. And by the third or fourth course of food, I was full because they eat several courses. And I was used to one plate, like you guys are eating right now. I wasn't used to 3 to 4 courses. So culture shock, right? And so I turned, and what I thought I said was, no, thank you, I'm full. And I could tell immediately, based on their reaction, that I had said something totally different, because they were trying so hard not to laugh. And I think my French father, who was an English professor, asked me, do you want to know what you said? I'm like, please. Yeah, I kind of do. And he said, you're pregnant with a cow's baby. Well, yeah, that's not what I wanted to say. So I knew then I was going to have to change up my strategy here because I knew that the communication part was going to come a little bit later. I was not going to be fluent quite so quickly, right? So the next day I went out and I observed for hours. I wanted to know a couple of things about the French. I wanted to know if they just hated Americans or did they hate everyone else? They hate everyone else. They don't like anybody. So the fact that we were foreigners made it very obvious they were not going to like us. So I saw how they interacted with each other, and the French I had learned in textbooks where, like, for example, saying, excuse me, if you're going through the metro and you're trying to move past people, I thought it was excusez-moi. It wasn't. It was pardon. That's what they say to each other. So I'm like, okay, well, then now I know. And I looked at how they dressed and how they drank their coffee and what they ate. I mean, I looked at everything. Tell me if you can see a difference from the first picture and the second picture. What's different about me? The clothes. It's formal, right? I don't look like an American anymore, do I? What else? I'm sure there's something else you can pick out. Aside from the backdrop, right? It's not countryside. My hair is short, like the French women, right? And I've gained a couple of pounds, so I had totally adapted to their culture. And adaptability, ladies and gentlemen, is strategy number one. Adaptability is a way to connect with others, a way to feel like you're part of them, even if you don't speak their language, okay? And it's something I applied about 13, 14 years later at the workplace. Now, that's not me on the left. I just couldn't find one where I was dressed in chief executive officer clothes, because that's what the pharmaceutical reps look like. They look like they are C-suite. And when I started working in hospitals for Pfizer, I worked for a very, very intelligent manager called Mark DeSantis. And Mark revolutionized the way we were seen in the hospitals. He said, in order for us to be successful, we need to wear scrubs. And a lot of the pharmacy directors thought we were trying to just blend in, to like sneak into the hospital. But the reality was this: we were trying to adapt to our new environment. And the new environment was to be selling to nurses. What do nurses wear in the hospital? They wear scrubs. Because this is what I want you to think about as you're going through my talk, as I'm talking to you. I want you to think about the people that you work with on a team. Who is part of that team? I was a hospital account rep, and a lot of reps looked at this as, well, I cover hospitals, so I need to go call on the director of pharmacy. They were missing the point. Who is the customer of the hospital? Who is it? The patient, right? The patient. And some would argue the doctors, because the doctors admit patients, right? So you have two different paradigms here. And who spends the most time with patients? The nurses, right? So if I was going to be successful in hospital sales, I was going to spend the majority of my time with nurses. And so I had to mirror what they look like. And we were really successful. And we were the first pharmaceutical company in the country to revolutionize the way we were seen. We were no longer pharmaceutical reps pushing our products. We were now part of their healthcare team. Simply put. But like I said, what happens when you start working in the hospital environment, you need to start putting people's needs above your own, because that's the other way of connecting. And that is strategy number 2, help. And I'm sure my dad's looking at the slide going, why is my face staring back at me? Why, oh, why did she put me on here? Is she gonna embarrass me? I'm not. I'm actually going to share a story. If I get emotional, I apologize. My father taught me how to help others. To add value to others, one must first value others. And that's a direct quote from John Maxwell's book, Everyone Communicates If You Connect. My dad was the only urologist in the Lower Valley that accepted Medicaid in his practice, the only one. And you know, when I was a young child and he spent a lot of time working, I couldn't understand why he was always working and never home. And until I worked with him, and I don't mean when I sold Viagra to him, that's a different story. But when I worked with him as 16 years old, I was covering his practice as his office manager, because his office manager was taking a leave of absence for a month. And I came in and I worked, and I would do the adjustments for Medicaid. And even back then, they got paid very little for the amount of work that they did. And so once I asked my dad, I said, Daddy, why do why are you the only one that sees these patients? And he said, Sylvia, and of course this was all in Spanish, so I'm translating. If I don't see them, who's gonna take care of them? Who will? And so when you see an example like that, a leadership example like this, is something that John talks a lot about adding value to others, about putting their needs first before your own monetary gain. To me, that's priceless. And I've never said this publicly, and he doesn't know I know this, so it may come as a surprise to him. In 2003, when he retired from medicine, I had a lot of patients that found out who I was, and they came up to me and they said, "Oh, you're Dr. Villalobos' daughter." I'm like, "Oh gosh, why are they asking?" And they said, "No, we have some very good stories to share with you. Your dad did surgery on my mom and never charged me a dime. He would do it for free." You don't see that very often anymore, ever. I don't see that anymore. People are always out, bottom line, what can I get out of this? You don't see that. You know what happens when you help someone? You inspire them. And that leads me to third strategy, hope. This is John Maxwell's strategy as well. You inspire someone. You're probably wondering, is that my daughter? Yes, that's Vivian when she was a baby. And the lady on the right is someone I love very much and I work very closely with, and that is a J.B. Goodwin real estate agent that I work with in Austin. Her name is Esperanza Tavitas. And she's a phenomenal real estate agent. And I'm introducing her here for hope and inspiration because the direct quote from John says, when you make a commitment, you create hope. When you keep a commitment, you create trust. And trust is the other part of that equation that leads to connection. They have to trust you. You have to trust them, right, to buy from them. And who represents the C personality in this? It would be me. I'm the C personality in the first personality discussion. The C personalities, they're process oriented. They go from idea to goal and everything in between. So in boardrooms, when we are discussing or in group settings, we're the ones that are really quiet. We're observing all the time. We're watching. We're not talking. That's a different personality, and I'll get to them in a minute. They don't come up with the best of ideas, but they will be there, and they will get it done. And she knows that about me. She knows that I have to look at details, and I have to have a logical way of looking at things. So Esperanza and I went out to look at properties not too long ago because I work very closely with her. I'm an investor, and so I look at investment properties in Austin. And so she took me out, and we went to a brand new area, and it really shocked me. The property tax rate was through the roof. I was like, wow, this is so much more expensive. And I'm not talking Valley, I'm talking Austin. Like $8,000, $9,000, and this is a brand new area. This is not an area that's been lived in. This is built, like brand new area. I thought, wow, this is more expensive than the other homes in Round Rock Cedar Park area. So I thought, okay, well, and she noticed that. She picked up on that when I was making the rounds. And I asked the real estate agent, the guy that was working with the buyer, and he said, no, it's a brand new area and it's the fastest growing, and he was trying to spin it. And he forgets he's dealing with a salesperson, so I knew what he was doing. I was like, do not spin it, because you're dealing with someone that knows what you're doing, right? So she caught up on that. And you know what she did the very next day? She sent me an email detailing all the issues that could arise when buying directly from a buyer, from a builder, excuse me. All the issues. Watch out for this, watch out for that, be careful with this. This is totally different than the stuff we've done before. I want you to be aware of it, because she knows that I'm a details person. And so is my husband, so she's got double C's working against her. So she didn't make the sale that day, but you know what she gained? which is worth even more? Trust and loyalty. Because I have a lot of real estate friends, a lot of them, and they always want me to come over to them. But I'm not gonna. Because this lady right here knows what it takes. She knows what she needs to do to gain my trust and to further her sales, because she's gonna get a sale from me. I guarantee you, she will. It just won't be with that builder, because I'm not going into that $8,000 property tax area. Who wants that? I mean, it's not even worth it anymore, right? So as a C personality, I struggle with one personality in particular. Oh yes, the polar opposite of the C's. Who is the polar opposite of the C? I know, Andy, you know. I, the sunshine. And who would be the best person to represent the I but my daughter, the toddler, the 3-year-old? But she's 2 here, see? She looks so innocent, doesn't she? She really isn't. No, not innocent at all. The I personality is a real interesting personality, because these I personalities, they are joyful, man. I think of sunshine every time I see them. I mean, they look like sun, bright, cheerful, and that's when you deal with them, you have to deal with them in that tone of voice. It has to be energetic. Yay, always cheering them on, because you have to empathize when they're having a bad day. You have to be, oh, I'm sorry to hear that, you know, and I struggle with that. I struggle with that. It's not part of my personality, but I had to do it. And I racked my brain, because doctors don't fall in this category very much. I's, they're mostly C's and D's. That's where you see doctors primarily. So if you're selling a home to a doctor, be prepared to show reports, especially to my dad. All he wants to see the details. So the I personalities are the ones that come up with all the creative ideas. So you need them on a team, because you need ideas, right, to further your sales. But you also need the other personalities as well. So always remember that when you're working with different personality types, that just because they're not like you doesn't mean that they don't know what they're doing. They are part of your team. And, you know, Vivian has really stretched my abilities as a person. She really has, in very good ways. Not just there's moments, though, I got to tell you, I went from negotiating with orthopedic surgeons in the OR to negotiating with my toddler. I picked the orthopedic surgeons any day. Oh yes, it's hard. And Velma has called me, and she's heard Vivian in the background. She knows what I'm talking about. Diva all the way, all the way, all the way. The one thing I also struggled with, aside from dealing with the I personalities, was actively listening. And my dad's not in the room right now, and I think he'd agree. He always would tell me, pero escúchame, escúchame. And I'm like, no, I don't want to listen to you. I'm done listening to you. I'm old now. Like, I'm in my 40s, even this morning. Pero escúchame, Silvia. I'm trying to tell you something. I always struggled with this, but it is a strategy that you need. You need it in connection, in sales. And I'm going to share a story with you with actively listening. Do you know that listening is where the action is? Did you know that? Yes? How do you know that?
Because the true meaning of communication is not what you say, but what is heard by the other party.
Exactly. Precisely. Very good. I had never thought of that, but now I'm going to take note of that. Listening is where you listen to the perspective that your customers have about you and your products and your services. But if you're too busy talking, or I don't mean to say this word because you guys are all eating, so I'm going to avoid it. It was a certain way that Pfizer used to say, you know, the give out all the speech all in one, the elevator pitch all in one sitting. And there's a particular term we used to use, but you guys are eating, so I'm not going to go there. But it does allow you to gain the insight, and that's important because you have to be able to actively listen for the opportunity that the customer is going to give you. Right? So ask a good question, and then they used to say, shut up and listen. Shut up and listen. Don't talk. Don't interrupt. So I have an example of a time where I actively listened, and it really, really was a game changer for me in my industry and the way I was viewed in hospital sales for Pfizer. Does anyone know who Dr. Robert Holder is? A show of hands. I know Andy does. My mom, do you know Dr. Robert Holder? You know Dr. Holder. Daddy sees him. Same doctor. He's the S personality. And 2 years into being in hospitals, and you have to know about Robert Holder, he is an incredible physician. He's a family practitioner in Harlingen. And he's very warm and receptive. Such a great man. And anyone who has him as a doctor is very lucky. Very, very lucky. And I've known Dr. Holder since the start of my career in '97, so we had known each other at this point like 10 years, right? And he's the type of guy that doesn't go inside the hospitals. He has a service that does that for him, but his practice is really old. It's an older practice. Not to say that Daddy's old, but he's getting up there, you know? And so his patients, the older you get, the more complicated you get, right? You have a lot of conditions and stuff. So the last thing you want to do is admit them into a hospital, right? So he called me, and I was selling an antibiotic at the time, and they had to be super sick to be on my antibiotic. And he said, you know, Sylvia, I have this case. And he started talking about the case. And early on, I knew that it wasn't a patient for my antibiotic because of the diagnosis he gave me and the bacteria he referenced. But I didn't interrupt him because this personality type, the S, does not like to be interrupted. They don't like it. They like to be heard. And they're the types that in the boardrooms are also very quiet and observant. And it really bothers them when they're not allowed to speak. Like when they start speaking and the other personalities dive in and they try to interrupt them, you can sense it right away in them. So this personality, your approach has to be very warm and receptive, and you've got to take it step by step. So when Dr. Holder was talking to me, I listened, even though my knee-jerk reaction was to interrupt, because that's my personality type. I wanted to interrupt, but it's not about me, it's about him, right? And adding value to him. And so we finally talked like 5 to 10 minutes. And finally, I wanted to make sure I understood what he was asking me, so I with him. And is this, the diagnosis? And he said, yes. I said, I'm really sorry to hear about your patient and how sick he is. But unfortunately, my antibiotic's not going to be the right choice here. And here's why. And I went through the whole step-by-step with him. I want you to have a perspective right now of what I gave up that day. I gave up 6 weeks of therapy and over $1,000. And I was a single mom at the time. But it was the right thing to do because it comes back to you. What you throw out there comes back to you. And people talk in your industry. They talk in mine. I'm sure they talk in yours. And if you do the right thing, it always, always comes back to you. Always. In a good way. In a better way than you ever expected. So that example right there, because of the leadership I saw at home with my dad and the way he helped them put other people's needs above his own monetary gain, I actively listened. And it's a skill that can help you have better relationships, even with your spouse. Now, I struggle with this when I interrupt my husband all the time. I get stuck on one thing. He says one thing and I'm already like counterattacking, right? Has that ever happened to you? And then you miss like 30 minutes after and you don't know what he said, right? Or what she said, in case, the guys are in the room. And I found that this particular strategy or skill set is super, super critical in connection and in sales overall, right? And I see a lot of nodding of the head, so I know for a fact this is sinking in. You're like thinking, yeah, this is definitely it. But the one that John Maxwell talks about, and he uses a lot in the speeches, is humor. Humor. And for the people that are in the room that know my mom, and yes, Mom, that is you up there. I know you can see yourself. I know you can see yourself. And as you probably can tell, my family is my center, my whole universe. My mom is my rock. And she's used humor. Yes, she does deserve it. She was the type of person that early on in her life and in her career always used humor. And her career as a stay-at-home mom, because I mean, she had her hands full with all three of us, and we were not easy. And my dad was always working, so he wasn't around to help out with that portion. But so she had humor in her. She would tell the dirtiest jokes. To this day, she still does. She's really good at it. What happens when she tells dirty jokes? You see? They're going like this. Yes, she does. Yeah, she does. She's the party animal. She doesn't look it. She looks like a lady, doesn't she? Yeah, no. Hardly, right? She married a urologist, so she has to have humor, right? Come on. You have to have humor. They heard all the Viagra jokes, I'm sure. She says them all, too. But my mother was connecting with others with her humor. And she was helping Daddy in his career. You know how they always say, behind a great man, there is a great woman rolling her eyes? Yes, that would be my mom, for sure. And my son, Andres, who is featured on the right side of the screen, inherited his grandmother's wit. He's really funny. Really funny. You would never know it, though. He looks so serious sometimes, especially when he doesn't smile. But Andres uses this to connect to others with teachers at school. And the fact that he makes his grandfather laugh, that's a big plus. He's funny. He got my dad to loosen up. That's good skill. He got it, for sure. But the one that had the most humor in a lot of cases was my husband, Donnie. And the first time he met my family, they're a tough crowd. They're all doctors. So they're real serious, and it's all about, what they know and all the knowledge. And here comes my husband, and we were in Tennessee. It was my nephew's baptism, Roxanne's son, and we fly up, and tough crowd they were. And he starts using the medical humor. Literally, and has them like in stitches, laughing at themselves, laughing at their industry. I mean, tough crowd, tough personalities to deal with, right? So, and then came the time that I almost died 6 years ago. And it was a real dark period. And during that time, he spent 10 days with me in the hospital, making me laugh. And so heart is strategy number 6. And I know it's a little fuzzy to see because it was taken on my mom's old phone, the picture on the right, and he is from LSU, so if you recognize the LSU Tiger t-shirt, that's what he's wearing. And I'm there in that bed, laughing, even though my life hung in a very delicate balance. And I'm going to share with you the backstory for those of you that don't know, because I think you'd really understand what it is to connect on an emotional level. And I think we can all agree that men have a real struggle in connecting on an emotional level, right? I mean, all the women in the room, I'm sure you can agree with that. We as women are encouraged in our society to share our feelings, but what happens with the men? Come on, men, what happens? Do they encourage you? Keep it inside. Keep it inside. Keep it all inside. Don't talk. Don't be emotional. You're a provider. You don't share. Well, here's the backstory. It was Easter of 2012, and we were dating maybe 5 months at that time, so early on in the relationship. And my son was really young. He was like 6 or 7. And I was really excited because Donnie had invited us to go to Easter for crawfish boil to Louisiana, and I never had crawfish before, but I was excited because it was the first time that my son was going to be with his family and meeting. So being a single mom, you think, oh, this is progressing quite nicely, right? This is going to lead to marriage, right? So here we are. This is what we're thinking, just so you know, men. This is what goes through our mind. So off we go, but a day before the trip, I started to feel very ill. Very, very ill. I couldn't breathe past a certain point without having very sharp pains underneath the right breastbone. And my mom, who saw me before I got on the plane, said, "Don't go. You don't look well. You're pale. You're so white." But I was so excited that I got on the plane. And I flew to Houston, and we spent the night in Houston, thank God, because in the middle of the night, I had what resembled a heart attack. It felt like 50 knives were piercing my chest. It was awful. You know how they say that the elephant steps on your chest and that's how it feels, that pressure? That's what it felt like. And I had consulted with my brother, who's a doctor, of course, before I left, and this was all over the phone, and he had said, "Oh, based on your history and your age and your, how you look and everything, oh, it's pleurisy. It's really painful. It's the inflammation of the lining of the lung. It's really, really painful." And I thought, in the middle of the night, I thought, man, he wasn't kidding. This is really painful. And somewhere deep inside of me, I heard the Holy Spirit say, "Lean forward and you'll be able to breathe." And I did, for 4 hours. I didn't call a soul. Not one person was called, because I thought, well, it's painful. I'm gonna take it. And the next morning I call my brother and I go, "Dude, sorry, but I don't think this is pleurisy. Like, I really don't think this is pleurisy." And he said, "Where are you?" "I'm in Houston. I told you I flew." He goes, "You flew yesterday?" He goes, "Get dressed and go to the ER immediately." Immediately. And I had never heard my brother like that. And he's my baby brother, so by like 11 months. So it's hard for the older sister to pay attention to the baby brothers, But when they say it in such urgency, you're just like, something's up. He's not telling me something. So I rushed over with my son and my boyfriend of 5 months, and it was only the second time they had met. So you can imagine, the fear in everybody's face, like what's going to happen. And you walk in, and the first thing they ask you, "What's your pain?" I'm like, "Is there something higher than 10? Because that's where I'm at." Where is it? In the chest. And they immediately put you through, because they're thinking she's having a heart attack, right? Because heart disease is a killer in women, and we never go to the hospital. We send our men, we just don't go, right? So I walked in, and they do a scan, and I had 4 to 5 pulmonary embolisms in my lungs. Now, if you don't know what a pulmonary embolism is, it's a blood clot that forms and travels to your lungs and can potentially block the veins, and you could die, right? A lot of women don't make it past 1. I had 4 to 5, but that wasn't the worst of it. You're thinking, wow, that's pretty bad, right? And yeah, it was pretty bad. But the initial scan caught the top of the liver, and the liver was inflamed. And the first thought that went through my mind was, I have a tumor. And I was freaking out, because I'm thinking, that's pretty bad, because that's cancer. And the specialist got called in, they did blood work, and I'm like, "No, you don't have all the outward signs and symptoms of this, but just to be sure, we're gonna wait till tomorrow and do a scan." I'm like, "Why not just do it tonight?" Well, it's because the scan has a dye and it can really affect your kidneys, so they don't wanna mess you up internally, so they have to wait till the next day. But I mean, that night I couldn't breathe, I couldn't think, I couldn't sleep. It was anxiety driven, right? And so finally, by this point, my son has been taken back to the valley by my sister-in-law, who had flown up with my mom on Good Friday, nonetheless, you imagine, on Easter weekend. And they fly back, and he had just left. They did the scan, and I had 6 doctors show up in my hospital room. And that's not good news. You're thinking, this is not going to be good. And the critical care pulmonologist who had seen me the night before said, "Sylvie, we have some bad news." Yeah, I think so. 6 guys in your room, but it better be bad news. And he said, "You have a massive blood clot in your vena cava." And the vena cava is the vein that supplies the blood to all your major organs. And it's putting pressure on your liver If it manages to cut off the blood supply to your liver, you're going to go into acute liver failure and require a transplant. So this is what we're going to do. And so they said, oh, we're going to give you this medicine, but here are the list of side effects. It's like 50 side effects, but the two that caught my attention were death and hemorrhagic stroke. So I'm sitting there, okay? There's a pendulum, right? You know what happens when you hear news like that? I'm sure some of you have heard horrible diagnosis before, what your mind does. It just, everything goes blank. It's almost, in a way, how it protects you. And the only image I had in my mind was of dropping myself in God's arms, because that was the only choice I had. I knew science was only going to go so far, and then there was God. So that's the backdrop story. Obviously, I survived, right? But it worked. But here's what Donnie did. Donnie was there. He never left, even though we had only been dating 5 months. You know, he was a really good guy, right? And during that time, because he had only taken his computer, because we were only planning on the weekend, right? Not 10 days later. He still had responsibilities at work. And he had a personality that called him. A personality that called him, the deep personality that called him. This guy worked for Dell. And he didn't like fluff. He didn't want an emotional talk. None of those things, right? He was all about results. What can you do for me? Because I need you to help me. And here's Donnie with all this happening all around him. A man who loves someone, they struggle to put things in emotion, but in those moments, I've seen where men rise to the occasion, right? And my husband certainly did. He was my boyfriend at the time, but he did. And he basically told Dave, he was like, Dave, as much as I want to help you, I can't. I'm here with my girlfriend, and she's in ICU, and we don't know if she's going to make it. And I can't help you right now. And I think this guy heard the anguish in his voice because he stopped. For someone who doesn't like fluff and who's all about them and about what can you do for me and direct approach, and that's what you have to deal with these personalities, he asked how I was doing. Because the one thing that I want to leave you with, if I'm going to leave you with anything, is we are human. That's what we have in common, right? We are all human. And if we connect at a deeper level, that's what makes the world go round. Authenticity. You have to be authentic with people. And that was Donnie at his core. He was not going to leave me ever. When I heard from friends of his, because I'm still dating this guy, so I don't know truly who he is, right? You don't know until these instances and these experiences. That's when you get to know their character. So, and everybody told me, that's all Donnie. Donnie is authentically that person that's going to stay by your side no matter what, right? And to this day, that personality calls him, and asks him about me, which is interesting. It's been years now. And because of that instance, the fact that he showed his heart and was authentic with this customer, he got the job. He continued getting jobs because they're human too, and they want to get to know you. They want to get to like and trust you. And the only way to do that is to be authentically you. So the question I want to ask of you is, what are your values? What do you seek in others? Because what John Maxwell talks about in Everyone Communicates If You Connect is dealing with like-valued individuals. That's who you want to work with, right? That's who you want to work with. So if you're dealing with lenders, which I can see a couple of you here, and then I go over here and I see lenders over there, and I see real estate agents all throughout, these are people that can make you or break you with their connections, right? They can further your sale. If you help them out, they'll help you out. But you got to be able to give a hand first, right? So I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of what we've been talking about has one particular acronym, AHA. I wanted you to have an aha moment. The 7 skill sets, very easy, okay? Adaptability, 1. actively listening to, help, hope, heart, humor, and authenticity. Authenticity. And those are the most important things to take care of. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Did I keep it real? Did I keep it real? I don't know.
The personality traits that I know of are like the sanguine, the choleric. I'm trying to figure out which one, which is the.
They're all based on Carl Jung's personality. This is based on ours. I'm trying to remember because they all just have it in different forms. But pretty much you see it like the D's will be very dominant.
That's the choleric.
Okay, so very dominant personalities. Those are the personalities like in a boardroom where they're always talking and they're interrupting each other a lot. Okay? And the I's are talkers too, but the I's you see them because in social, they love social settings. They love coffee connects. And they love happy hours. Ooh, they love happy hours. So if you're gonna do business with an I, you gotta take them to a happy hour. That's where you're gonna be, that's where you're gonna see. And then if you're dealing with S's, they're very people persons, the S's, but they're quieter. Those people don't like for you to get into their personal space, so they really don't belong in the valley because everybody gets like right here. Hi, how are you? They all like the valley. And then you'll see the C's that are very process oriented. Like I said, a lot of doctors and engineers are in the C's category. I tell you because I'm married to an engineer and I was raised by a doctor. They're identical. They don't think so, and their egos are like, wee, way up there. We gotta bring them down. Gotta bring them down. Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm primarily C with D. So when I get impatient, my D comes out. I'm not very nice. So, the D. And then sometimes we have preferences, right? So I prefer to be an S. Now that I'm a speaker, coach, and trainer, I'd be an enthusiastic encourager. That's the S personality, right? The environment.
So say like adaptability, what if you have to adapt to that person?
You adapt.
You would have to change.
You would use the approach that they are. So for example, if you're a C and you're dealing with an S, you would go in a warm and receptive tone. You have to change it up. You'd have to go step-by-step approach when you talk to them. You're not dealing in it. You know you are that personality, but now that you know the tendency, that's why I have the DISC profile there on your tables, so that you can tell like the strategies and what to emphasize. I know Velma has a question. I can. No, you don't have a question?
He asked me what I was, I said, oh, I don't know.
You're an I, baby girl. You're an IC. Yes, you're the polar opposite of yourself. There's like bipolarness there. No. I know, because we had to observe them. We had to walk up to doctors all the time and know right away, and you can tell. Go ahead.
So can you meet somebody and automatically tell what they are? So what am I?
You're an I, love. You're an I, and it's also the pace at which you're speaking. She talks very fast, and so do you. You have that in common, right? And then Kenya's a little bit, quieter. There she is. She's a little bit quieter, but she also has a lot of I in her because they're people persons, the I's, right? And you can see them because they have all the creative ideas, all of them, right? And then you have the C's. The I's don't like pessimism or negativity at all. And the C's come across as negative, but we call ourselves realists. We don't say we're negative. We're realists. We know what it takes. That's us. Anybody else? Because I know you all have the guides in front of you. You're staring at it like, wow. And I wanted to give you something that you can take back with you to look at and to analyze, because it's about language, right? It's about the way you're transferring.
So when
going back to Dee's question, when you're approaching someone and you don't know anything about these people, right? They're a client or they're an affiliate or someone that works with you, how can you tell whether they're a DI or S or a C?
Like I said, like the tone of voice, like even the way, look, the Ds are very confident, and that's what they like. If you're not confident, they're gonna walk away from you. So if they walk away from you, that's D, there's no question, okay? It's the way they're walking into a room, they're walking like this, very, like, I'm in control, that's D, right? The I's are like, la, 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 that's the I. The S's are real quiet, you know? You're coming in, they're kind of cautious, they sit down, and if you try to touch them, they kind of go like this. That's an S. There she is. I could tell by the moment I got near her, she was like, wait, just don't touch me. Just don't touch me. I'm not going to touch you, I promise. I won't touch you. I may just do things to you. I'm kidding. So that's the S, right? And then who am I missing? The C's. The C's, they're very observant. In conference rooms, like in board of director meetings and things like that, they're just watching people. They're raising their hand to talk. They don't like to interrupt anyone. They're very polite. We are very polite. We are very, very polite. We wait our turn. But man, do we hate it when they interrupt us. When the D's and the I's, yo hice esto, I did this. I'm like, I don't care. The C's are like, I don't care what you did. Like, how are you gonna get from point A to point B? Because that's what we wanna know. It's like, how are you gonna, and C's ask why questions. Have you ever noticed that? But you do like process. You're very detail oriented. So that's where I would, you have some tendencies, but you definitely have an eye. I'm bipolar according to Sylvia. You're not. But you do have some C in you. When it comes to details, you're very detail oriented. So that's where I would be like, she may have all 4 personalities in her. Multiple personality disorder, over here. Any other, okay. So people can hear her.
That's what I was going to ask you. The multiple, it's kind of like maybe having a little bit of each, right? Could that be possible? Oh, okay.
There's a certain tendency, can everybody hear me? There's a certain tendency that we all have that's really powerful in the way you think, the thought process that goes behind it. If you find yourself like arguing, watch yourselves in a boardroom. If you all belong to the same group, just watch and observe how they talk, how they interact, how they walk. Start watching. You'll be able to pick up these personalities very quickly. But you have to always be looking. You always have to be looking. Pay attention. Actively look and actively listen because they'll give you the cues. You know, someone that doesn't want to talk to you, they're going to do this. I see. That's how some of my doctors were. So I wouldn't even approach him. I'm like, I'm not walking up to that dude. He doesn't want to talk to me. So I'm not going to talk to him, you know? And some of these, and then plus doctors had where they would go into their world. You know, I would pass him in the hallways. Did you know that? And he wouldn't even know I was there. His own daughter, he wouldn't even like see me. I'm like, Dr. Villalobos, and he still wouldn't turn around. I was like, finally, Daddy! And then he turned. I was like, wow, at least he responds to Daddy. At least he knows he's a daddy, you know? But yeah, that was such a trip when Pfizer thought it was funny to sell Viagra to my own dad. That just was comical. I had never had the sex talk with him. I had to have the sex talk all day long. That was bad. And he was a C, so I had to bring in all the studies. You know, this is how the erection and then, and no, come on. That's just bad. All the way around. I know, it sounds funny, and he does. He probably laughs about that. You know? But the first time I walked into surgery with him, I couldn't stand the sight of blood, like, at all. And I had to shadow him when I was shadowing him for Viagra. And he's all excited. This is way before his stroke and everything. All like, oh, mira, Silvia, you know? And I think the anesthesiologist caught a sight of me because I turned pale, probably as white as that tablecloth. And they're like, oh, boy, she's about to pass out here. Sylvia, why don't you observe how this patient's breathing? Yeah, let's go observe that, because I can't see the blood right now, I just can't. But those were the experiences we had out in the field. Do you guys have any other questions? Anything that I mean, you have me here, I work with John Maxwell, I promote most of his books. I have, if you liked how I talked today, I have a special promotion for the Women's Council of Realtors because they were so good to me. In front of you is a sheet of paper that talks about the experience and the power of the mastermind. It's a 10-week course. Initially, I told Velma it was going to be 6 weeks. I miscommunicated that to her. It's a 10-week course. It's a teaching call once a week for an hour, $100 instead of my usual fee of $300. So I'm dropping the price significantly for the Women's Council of Realtors. If you guys are interested, I would be more than happy. Pick one of the 2 dates that works best for your schedule. I try to do them at lunch because we all have to have lunch at some point.
You're going to have 2.
I'm going to have 2, one on Wednesday and one on Friday, but not in person. It's over the phone because I live in Austin. So, and I got to be back home with my 2 little bambinos who need me. So, but it's an offer. If you guys want it, it's basically $10 a week. Basically is what you're paying for, and I would be reviewing the rest of the book, Everyone Communicates If You Connect. And he goes in depth with various principles, because for those of you that don't know John, I mean, he's written over 100 books on leadership alone. He's very well known. He's internationally well known. He's got 4 companies. One of the companies is where we are all at, the certified speakers, coaches, and trainers for John. But he has written over numerous subjects, and it's not just leadership. So this one was specifically on connection, and it's just really important. Obviously, we know that it's a critical part to our success, to our productivity, and how we influence others, and building better relationships. So if you guys are interested, let me know. Fill out, I'm going to have a sheet of paper for you guys to fill out if you're interested. If not, thank you so much for coming. I'm gonna have a sheet of paper to have you guys fill out, and then go ahead and pay for the $100 and set it up.
Sylvia, I have a question. This is Central Time, the call? Is it
Central Time, because I'm in Austin. Sorry, if it said Pacific Time, does it say that?
No, it doesn't say anything.
Okay, Central Time.
But I am.
She's a C girlfriend. She's a D.
And it's regarding the book, Everyone Communicates.
You connect the whole book, and that's why it's a 10-week. We go through 10 lessons basically, and I've done these a couple of times, and I've known that if I go past just one chapter, it's too much information, because there's so much information he packs into every lesson that I don't want to miss a thing, because obviously he knows what he's talking about. So.
And both of them are on the same book, based on the same?
Yes,
book?
yes.
So it's going to be identical?
Identical, one or the other, depending on your schedule, whichever. Ay, qué gacho eres. That's not nice.
That's why he doesn't want to be the same team with me now.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. His loss. ¿Qué
What
pasa?
personality is he?
Huh?
What personality is he? What Mr. Wonderful is?
He's a D. He tells you as it is. He's all dominant. I'm a man. I'm dominant. Watch me here. I'm going to roar for you. I'm Aslan from Narnia. Oh, I can tell right away by the way he speaks and the confidence with which he speaks. Yeah. Any other question? You have a question? Here.
My name is Delilah, and I was invited by Ms. D to come here. Thank you. And so I want to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you for your humbleness and your honesty. It's very touching to see that people are still able to communicate and connect. I don't know you before this, but now I feel like I could be your friend. And I wanted to take this class. I'm also, I need to buy the book so that I can. It would be better if you did, because you get more out of it if you bought the book, and as people read the chapter, then you're ready to go for the lesson, because I'll have the lesson. Okay, thank you. I'll need your email so that I can email you the lesson, so you can follow along. Thank you. And the next thing I was going to tell you, I'm the Brownsville Femme City Collective leader, and I would like to invite you to start a Femme City Collective in Austin, because I think your story needs to be told.
Anybody else? Anything else I can answer for you guys as well? Going once? Going twice? Gone. Thank you so much, Dee. Thank you, Kenya, and thank you, Velma, for having me here today.
Thank you, Sylvia, very much for being here, for accepting our invitation, for being here. We really and truly enjoyed your amazing story, your speech. It was amazing. At this time, if I may have Kenya up here, so she can share with you our upcoming events for Women's Council of Realtors.
Hi, I'm Kenya. So we have a couple of events coming up, but the one that we really would like for everybody to know about is Diva Exchange. It is in 2 days. It's a great event. It's fun more than anything. For the girls, we have tickets over here, and Alisa has tickets. Velma, Dee, Mirta, everybody has tickets if you're interested. Basically, how it works, we all basically go to our sponsor, who is Edwards Abstract. We take up to 10 items. You attend the event, and you can exchange those 10 items, whether it's shoes, clothes, accessories, for other items that the other ladies will bring. So it's just a fun event for everybody to hang out, maybe have some drinks, maybe have some, appetizers, and just have fun. It'll be on Thursday from 5:30 to 7. And then we will also be having a CE credit course in June, the 6th, with Nancy Adamson. It'll be a free event for everybody, so we hope to see you there. We'll send out information on our Facebook page and email everybody out, okay? Thank you all for joining us today. It was great to see everybody here. Thank you so much.